In this episode, we're going to talk about a person who had an enormous impact on California and on the far northern reaches of the Spanish Empire. He was a soldier, an explorer, a diplomat, and a governor, and his name can be found on a National Historic Trail, a state park, and numerous schools and streets throughout California, Arizona, and New Mexico. I'm talking about Juan Bautista de Anza. I'm Damian Bassich. Welcome to California Frontier. Juan Bautista de Anza was baptized at Cuquiarachi, Sonora, New Spain, in 1736, in the far northern frontier of the Spanish Empire. He was named after his father, Juan Bautista de Anza Sr., a frontier military captain who had immigrated to New Spain from the Basque Country of the Spanish Peninsula as a young man in 1712. When Juan Jr. was only 4 years old, Apache Indians killed his father in an ambush. Juan's mother, Maria Rosa, was left to care for her 6 children, including little Juan. Living on the frontier, Maria Rosa had the help of a network of extended family and godparents. As a young boy, Juan Jr. and his siblings lived at the Presidio of Fronteras, just south of today's Arizona-Mexico border. At 16, he followed in his father's footsteps and joined the Spanish Frontier Army. Because he came from a noble family, Juan entered as a cadet in the officer corps. During his training, much of which was in actual combat, he learned the life of a leather jacket soldier, the soldado de cuera, as they were known. He had to deal with the harsh desert environment and to excel as a horseman. In 1755, when he was only 19 years old, he earned his commission as a lieutenant. Throughout the 1750s, Anza participated in military campaigns. Much of his time was spent battling a group of Pima people who had allied with the Papagos of northern Sonora to attack Spanish settlements. He gained a reputation for courage in battle, taking great risks to his own life. In 1760, he was named commander of the Presidio at Tubac. He was only 24 years old, and he would remain in that position for the next 17 years. In 1761, he married Ana Maria Perez Serrano, who would stay by his side for the rest of his life. Much of Anza's time was spent in operations against the Apaches, the greatest native foes of the Spanish. Apaches often raided the lands of the Pima Indians and other native groups that had allied themselves with the Spanish. As Presidio commander, Anza was both a warrior and a diplomat. He took full advantage of the Spanish policy of utilizing native warriors, especially Pimas, alongside Spanish troops. His victories against the Apaches solidified his relationships with his native allies. But perhaps one of the most difficult things Anza had to do was to oversee the imprisonment and expulsion of the Jesuit fathers from the territories under his command. The Jesuits were Catholic missionaries, and many Native Americans of Sonora had converted to Catholicism thanks to their efforts. Anza was not very supportive of the idea of creating missions where Native people would live. He instead preferred the idea of attracting Indians to Spanish culture through contact with settlers. Nevertheless, he had personal ties to many of the Jesuit priests and did not want to see them forced out. In 1767, however, King Carlos III of Spain ordered the expulsion of the Jesuits from all Spanish territories, including New Spain. Anza was a loyal officer of the crown, and he knew what his duty was. After all, he wrote to the governor, the king commands it. When he received the order to proceed against the Jesuits on July 23rd of 1767, he did so without delay. But he was also aware of the human cost of his actions. Not only were some of the Jesuits his friends, but they had built up trust among many native people who were upset to see them go. So Anza did his best to reduce the harshness of the process, all the while carrying out orders he did not fully understand. There may be more to it than we realize, he wrote to the governor. The thoughts of men differ as much as the distance from earth to heaven. Anza's reputation for toughness and loyalty caused royal officials to give him more difficult tasks. Since the 1700s, the Spanish crown had wished to expand settlements into Alta California. They knew Alta California had the potential for better agriculture than today's southern Arizona, and the seacoast of the Pacific would be a great place for establishing ports for the Manila galleons that arrived from the Far East. It would also help serve as a bulwark against the English and the Russians who were extending their influence along the Pacific coast. The two presidios, established at San Diego in 1769 and Monterrey in 1770, did not seem to be enough to accomplish those tasks. The Spanish government believed that if they could bring in families to settle there, it would help create a supply of soldiers for more presidios and expose the local Indians to Spanish ways. Since the voyage by sea from Mexico was so difficult, Anza proposed an expedition to find a land route from Sonora to Alta California. On January 8, 1774, Anza set out with a group of 34 men, including Franciscan friar Francisco Garces and native scouts, to travel at least as far as Mission San Gabriel, near today's Los Angeles. With them was Sebastián Tarabal, a Cochimí Indian from Baja California, who had left the mission and traveled to Sonora overland. Tarabal would be their guide. On February 9th, they reached Yuma, near the border of what is today Arizona and California. There, they met with Chief Salvador Palma and several thousand Quechan Indians, who welcomed them with enthusiasm. In recognition of Palma's authority, Anza placed around his neck a ribbon with a silver medal bearing the image of King Carlos III. From there, Anza and his men passed through the desert that now bears his name, the Anza Borrego. They then continued over the San Jacinto Mountains and into what is today the Los Angeles Basin. The expedition reached the San Gabriel Mission on March 22nd, but it then continued to journey north reaching the Presidio at Monterrey on April 19th. Anza arrived back in San Gabriel on May 1st, and the group returned to Sonora 5 months after starting their journey. With the knowledge that the journey could be made successfully, Anza set about recruiting families willing to go to Alta California. On October 23, 1775, Anza set out from Tubac with a group of 240 men, women, and children. With them went friars Francisco Garcés, Tomás Exarch, and Pedro Font. Their guide was again Sebastián Tarabal, and 3 Native American interpreters also accompanied them. At Yuma, the group was welcomed by Anza's friend, Chief Salvador Palma, as he had done with the expedition a year before. They then continued on to San Gabriel. During the crossing, they encountered the arid deserts and winter blizzards. During the crossing, they encountered arid deserts and winter blizzards. But Anza saw to it that the party arrived safely on January 4th, 1776. Along the way, they had lost 1 member, a mother who died in childbirth, and 3 babies had been born. Anza did not stay long at San Gabriel. Instead, he continued up the coast with a smaller number of families and reached Monterrey on March 10th. Once his second-in-command, Lieutenant José Joaquín Moraga, arrived with the remainder of the families, Anza set out to explore the San Francisco Peninsula. Together with Father Font, he selected a place for a new presidio and mission in what is today San Francisco. Anza returned to Sonora in the fall of 1776, after having established the first Spanish colony in Alta California. The success of his California expeditions increased Anza's reputation as a leader. In 1777, he was appointed governor of New Mexico in recognition of his accomplishments as a frontiersman and diplomat. In New Mexico, he carried on the Spanish policy of maintaining peaceful relations with the Pueblo Indians through war, trade, and diplomacy. In New Mexico, he carried on the Spanish policy of maintaining relations with the Pueblo Indians through war, trade, and diplomacy. But Anza's life was not one of constant success. One of his greatest defeats was what came to be known as the Yuma Massacre. Despite his friendship with Chief Palma, and Anza had even been Palma's godfather at his baptism in Mexico City, problems arose. Teodoro de Croix, Commandant General of the Interior Provinces of New Spain, promoted a plan to establish a settlement and mission among the Quichans. The commandant of the Interior Provinces of New Spain, Teodoro de Croix, promoted a plan to establish a settlement and mission among the Quechan people. Although Chief Palma had requested a Spanish settlement, Anza did not like the hasty plan that Quah had approved. He warned the Commandant General against it, but to no avail. The Commandant General went ahead against Anza's advice and recruited families to settle near the Quechans. In July of 1781, a large group of Quechans, irate at Spanish settlers' use of their land and resources, and disaffected with Chief Palma's leadership, attacked and killed over 100 Spanish settlers. Quah would later blame Anza for the disaster. He claimed Anza exaggerated the power of Chief Palma to keep his people happy with the Spanish. For many years to come, the overland route to California would remain closed to the Spanish. The Yuma massacre was a failure for Anza's relationships with native peoples. Yet in New Mexico, he had some of his most important achievements in dealing with Indians. He understood how many tribes valued Spanish goods and protection from enemies, such as the Apaches. He understood how many tribes valued Spanish goods and protection from enemies, such as the Apaches. One of Anza's greatest accomplishments was establishing peace with the Comanches, who had been implacable foes of the Spaniards. After defeating them in battle, Anza convinced the Comanches to join the Spanish in their struggle against the Apaches. He also insisted that the Comanche make peace with the Utes, who had also become allies of the Spanish. Anza created similar pacts with the Navajo and Pueblo peoples. He owed much to the respect he earned among Native Americans. He owed much to the respect he earned among the Native Americans of the region as a warrior and diplomat. Anza spent 10 years in office as governor of New Mexico. In 1787, the Crown named him military commander of the entire province of Sonora, the land of his birth. He left New Mexico in August of that year. In Sonora, his career did not last long, though. However. Throughout the remainder of 1787 and 1788, Anza suffered from ill health. On December 20th, 1788, he died at the age of 52. He was buried in a side chapel of the mission of Nuestra Señora de la Asunción, Our Lady of the Assumption, in Arizpe, just south of today's Mexico-Arizona border. Juan Bautista de Anza was a man of many facets. He was a soldier, an explorer, and diplomat. He fought native peoples, yet was their friend and ally. He was deeply religious, yet had profound disagreements with the clergy. He had difficulties with orders he received, yet he carried them out faithfully. Today, Juan Bautista de Anza's name can be found on streets and buildings throughout California and the West, as well as the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail that goes from Nogales in southern Arizona to San Francisco, California. This is the California Frontier Show. If you would like to know more about the California Frontier Project, visit californiafrontier.net. If you would like to support the show, scroll down in the show notes and click Support the Show. Then be sure to tell all your friends about the podcast. If you would like to connect with me, the host, send me an email at damian@californiafrontier.net.